Hi, Julie.
How are you?
I'm excited and well, thank you.
Good. So we're talking today about your refugee mentoring program.
Yes.
So can you share a little bit about what this program is about, and maybe how you got involved?
Sure. So thank you for helping me to reflect and also share my thoughts after being involved in this refugee mentoring program. I'll start off with what it is first. So refugee mentoring program is a mentoring program for young refugees, and this is the population of individuals between the age of 18 to 22, 23, that is run in Indonesia to support this population, this young population in Indonesia. And the intention is really to equip these young people with skills, mindsets, expertise to go for their dreams, to rebuild their lives, because they have to rebuild everything as soon as they left their family or their home country. And this is organized by my sister-in-law and a few of her colleagues, Akino Tahir and a few of her colleagues in Indonesia. And I'm one of the people who is facilitating the process. So there are 3 blocks in this program. One is focusing on the resilience from the emotional perspective, emotional mindset, tools and skills on how to be resilient. The second parallel block is about critical thinking. So there is another group of facilitators who are teaching and teaching these young people on how to conduct a research project, a mini research project, applying critical and systematic thinking. And the third group is about cultural and language integrations. And this is also by another group. So I think it's a big team, and the program lasted for about 14 weeks. This is the first batch, the first program, the first batch of program that I was participating in, and I am going to continue with this. So it's a very intense project because every week the mentees and the facilitators on different streams are working together on this program. And I think, if I remember correctly, the amount of hours spent in Zoom on the sessions total is about between 100 to 110 hours in this 14 weeks.
Wow.
This is excluding for each people. For each mentees, and I'm probably taking 1/4 or 1/3 of it because there's a lot coming from each stream. And on top of that, they're also doing homework and reflections and exercises, all these things. So it's intense. It was an intense process, and we never did it before. This was the first time that we did it. So you asked me how I got in touch. Well, I think it's despite the fact that the program is this year, my journey to work on such a program started in 2019, actually. So I remember very clearly in 2019, I was part of a group of women who published a book about restarting life again. And I had made the intention that the profit coming out from the selling of this book from my parts, I would like to use it to donate it to people who are restarting their lives. And refugee group was very high in my list, and it ended up going to this group in Indonesia. But as I was actually doing that, I started to realize, I think, to restart, because I was writing my story, restarting my life. One thing that was very critical is to work on the belief system, to work on a deeper part of yourself, to work on the trauma, the wounds, etc., that had come to your life in many different forms at different times. because it's very difficult to move from a survival mode into thriving mode without processing these things. So I had thought to myself, I have some tools that I can contribute with, and I was contacting a few organizations that is supporting refugee here in Switzerland, a very specific offer that I would like to help or support them if they want to have somebody working on the trauma healing or the subconscious mind healing. Nobody answered to the request, not even an email back. Yes. Wow. So I said to myself, I don't know why such a thing is not obvious to people, and perhaps it doesn't work with the existing framework in the way this organization work. So I said to myself, I'm not killing this idea. I'm just putting it out to the universe, when the time is right. I'm hoping to get this opportunity. So I kept that alive. And then 2020 happens, and I went through my own healing process, because it, COVID triggered deep fear in me, being not knowing when I could see my family again, who are located in 2 other different continents. So I become really busy doing my own healing process, a very accelerated healing process. So I didn't think much about it. And then at the end of 2021, around November, I was in the US visiting my sister and her family, and my sister-in-law reached out, and she was saying, like, we have a really huge project here. We've been working on it for 18 months. And this is called the Refugee Mentoring Program. Can we have a chat with you? And I was like, yes, of course. So we had this conversation. I met with the core team. Basically, there were 4 people, and one of them is also an activist who is a refugee himself. Amazing young man. So they came and approached me about this concept, and they asked me, we feel like this would be something we would like to ask you, but of course it's pro bono and all these things, and we don't know if you have the interest nor the capacity to do it. And I said to them at the time, I'm super interested in 2 conditions. One is, I would like you all to after this call to think about whether you would allow me to do the subconscious mind healing, because for me that is something that must be done. I don't know if I could genuinely help people cultivating their resilience on a very deep level on such population that had gone through very difficult life journey, very traumatizing. So that is one thing which we have to touch the trauma, because otherwise it will become superficial, the whole process. And number 2, I would like to have a partner, because we, in this track, if I were to come in and build this up, we need to cover from both conscious and subconscious mind. I'm not, I don't believe I don't believe it's wise for me just to do it all myself. I can do both, but I prefer not to because it's a lot. So I would like to have a partner, and I would like you to find me a partner, basically. If this is good for you, then I'm in. But I can't speak about it until next year, because I'm totally in the resting mode by the end of 2021. For a very good reason. I mentioned 2020, 2021 has been probably the most intense healing period for me. And I understood why that is in relations to this project. So the gentleman who was in the call said to me very, very sweetly, and he's like, I have to agree with you that we have to address the trauma. I'm one of those people. And I remember him saying that, I'm relatively upbeat and active, and he's very solution driven. He's amazing young man. But he said, every time there is some thoughts coming at the corner of my mind, I lost 1 week. I couldn't pick up myself up because it's so intense. So, and I know this happens to every one of us. young or not, you know, when because it's intense what we are going through, and we're still going through this, because by nature they don't know where they're going to go, until when they're going to be there, where they're going to land, and particularly the young people that we were working with, the one who were selected into the program, a lot of them came unaccompanied to Indonesia. So they came alone when they were very young, and they didn't have family with them. They had to just survive life, basically. So
that's that's just incredible.
It was intense. It was intense. Yeah. And so they came back to me basically in January. They said, we found you a partner and we would like to proceed with the plan. And they asked us the questions, me and my partner, he's Indonesian, amazing coach. They said, so what's the curriculum? My partner and I had a long discussion about this. And we said, because this is the first program, we are very clear in terms of what our role is, what our ethic is. And but we're also saying, and we're very upfront with the group in the program, that we are going to be told, you know, by what shows up in the conversation. So it's one of those times when we came into the field only with what we know and the tools and who we are and how to manage our own energy, and then we're going to work with the mentees on what is important. So it's a bottom-up approach, and it was not like no others, but it was also very profound, because we were coming with a mindset of learning from them what they need, basically. Coming with a lot of tools in our back, and then we use different tools in the process. So yeah, it's that's how I got involved.
Yeah. Wow, it sounds amazing. It's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. It was it was like no other I have experienced, and I've been around for 48 years, you know.
Yeah. So are you now, is it done now, or is it still continuing?
The first batch
situation?
is complete.
Okay.
Yeah, the first batch complete. So we did the whole evaluations. We are going to start again sometime in the fall. And of course, this time around, we learn a thing or two about content, and huge content that we brought in. And we also see how different blocks actually influencing each other. So they cannot be run without each other. So I think this is what we learned so much, how the processing of the trauma and how the healing of the trauma impacted their resilience, the participants' resilience in the two other tracks, because it's a lot. I mean, all the facilitators, these are like professors from universities or professional in research and stuff like this. And they all said, look, we are giving these young people who have not graduated from high school, but have a very strong desire to learn and have the mind to learn and wanting to study, with something that we would be giving for the first year of university.
Wow.
So yeah, and this we do it like in 14 weeks.
Okay, so it's sounds like a very intense.
It's intense. It is intense. And I think when we started this program, I think the people that deals with the research, and also the organizer, they were thinking how many of them is going to quit, you know, because this is super intense, but it's for a good reason why it is intense. We wanted them to be able to integrate and understand, how do you get to know the culture where you are, right? And the different elements of the culture, how do you introduce your culture? And this is it is a skills that is useful anywhere, you know, whether they will be in Indonesia or not, they are currently in Indonesia or they move to another country, they could use the same principle in integrating themselves in new places. The other thing also is critical thinking is important. How do you know certain things is true or not? Because there's a lot of opinions, a lot of informations, but how do you distill that and make a clear and make it a conclusion that you can stand for, right? And to yourself particularly, and then to present that outward, because this is also something that a lot of them having difficulties because of the trauma. They felt like nobody's listening or nobody's giving them the credit, or the people think, a couple of them were saying like, I don't know why people think we're just people coming out from the cave. You know, we're not, but they have a stigma, a certain stigma of the word refugee, and they feel it, and they were in pain about it. And then, so these are really, these two are driven by skills and expertise and goals. But the part that my partner and I, my partner's name is Ari, that Ari and I covered is really on the more fundamentals. It's about how do you see yourself? How do you connect with yourself? You know, who are you? This kind of things.
I mean, important questions for, well, not just for refugees, but I think for all of us, right?
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
certainly the three tracks that you talked about, you know, the emotional resilience, the critical thinking, and you know, culture and language. I think, again, not just relevant for refugees, but for all of us, you know, particularly I think in current times where we've been through so much with COVID, now with, you know, Ukraine, with so many things happening in the world, you know, this whole resilience and critical thinking, I think, are so important.
So it's I can't tell you how this whole process makes it clear to me what I also need. You know, and what is very important, it's also interesting, is also the understanding from the people who run the program. Maybe we also need to process our own trauma. It was just not so in our face sometimes, this trauma, that we can still function. And in the case of this young group of people, it's so debilitating for them, that the fact that they show up into the program, the fact that they keep on trying, for me, it was like, wow, I mean, human soul is so strong. Because the stuff that you hear about what had happened to them is like, I couldn't fathom. It's just, it's very painful.
So what did this, you know, going through this whole sort of 14 weeks, accompanying them on this journey, how is that, you know, how has that changed you?
God, very big question. Okay. You know, I work on a daily basis with people who had difficulties, you know, going through with their lives. But this group of young people is on another level, Julie, in terms of trauma. And for me, they actually embodied or experienced something that I consider for myself to be my worst nightmare. Okay. Separation from my loved ones and not knowing when they can see each other again, or if they will ever see each other again, is enough to put me on the ground. The idea, and I didn't even go through this, right? Because COVID was bringing that out from me, and that's how I had to process for 2 years. And when I went through this facilitation program, of course, I knew my responsibility, right? Like, it's my responsibility was to be able to hold them, to feel safe, to go through this and to release certain things, because that's what happens in trauma healing, is that you release or you connect to the emotions. There are many ways to do it, but you basically connect to this trap emotion, limiting beliefs, all these things that you have stored in your body, and to connect to it and release, right? And even before the program, I started changing because I knew that I have to do more healing. to be able to hold a safe space. Because if I get triggered in the session, they would know it.
Yeah.
You don't need to behave in a certain way. Energetically, they would feel it. Because this group of people are very sensitive to everything because of the trauma that they went through, right? So I knew the first step that I had to do for myself is really to listen to my body. The weeks prior to starting the program, I really listened to my body. If I thought about this program and it triggers something, I processed it. It's like multiple times processing these things until I feel like I'm thinking about the program, I don't get like super tense. That's when I know I can enter the field. So from that perspective, even before the program started, I do believe that my heart, certainly the capacity to love people within myself has grown so much. Okay. And it has been growing with every interactions I have with them. So, and then there's something else that I experience from them. I think through many courses and also experience working with my clients, of course, I learn a lot about human, right? But through this interaction with these wonderful young people, I know for sure, Julie, this is when I know for sure that human heart is designed to be generous. I know that. I know. Before it was like, yes, I kind of can see it.
Yeah.
Yes, the books are saying this, or the spiritual teachings are saying this, but through my interactions with them, I know that to be true. I remember how much pain there were at the beginning during the first week, the first session. And I know how much they grew in that 14 weeks. And I know, because I hear them saying this multiple times, that what they would like, how they would like to live and go forward in life from these 14 weeks. And these 14 weeks is just a springboard, for us, it's like, we just give you a couple of tools. They all say, we want to help more people. They're not necessarily better off financially, but they're feeling better in themselves. And this is the first thing they say. We would like to help more people in our surroundings. And this is very touching for me because human is generous. Human heart is generous.
Yeah. I love this idea. I know that for sure. Yeah. This basically, paying it forward, right? In some ways, giving it, you've given your time, and it sounds like the others as well, pro bono, and help these young people, and now they want to pass it on as well to other people, and I think that's beautiful.
That's absolutely beautiful. The other thing I learned from this experience, honestly, this impacts me so much, is healing happens in relationship and in connections. It's not just the tools that you're using, for sure. It's not.
Yeah.
It is helpful, the tools, but that's not the essence of the healing. For me, it's about one's ability, or both parties' ability, to find safety in the connections. Because then their heart can open and my heart can hold. And of course, there are tools and exercises that I'm helping them with. I get certified in so many different tools, but I realize even when I have only one tool out of like God knows how many I have, the chance of this helping is so much higher because of the connection.
Yeah.
Okay. The feeling of safety, the feeling of I'm heard, I'm held, I'm held, I'm protected as I open myself. I'm understood. There was no judgment. And whoever was holding me generally want to hold me. They didn't have an agenda. And I didn't have any agenda, because I was telling them, we are going to learn together on how to do this. And I think this was a very, very deep confirmation, and which makes me feel very much more hopeful, right, about humanity. I think if we learn to hold spaces for each other, healing can happen much faster on a bigger scale. But then the question, what do we need to learn so that we can do this? What does that mean to be able to hold this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And sorry, and one other thing also specifically for this population is belonging was cut, right? Abruptly.
Yeah.
And this is connecting to the connections. At the end of the 14 weeks, it's very hard. It's impossible. It's not very hard. It's impossible for me not to think of them as my family, as my own family. My heart cannot distinguish the difference between people, whether they're family or not family. When my heart connected to you, you are my family. It's just something that I'm accepting. when there's a heart-to-heart connection, you matter to me, and you matter to me like I matter to me. So, and that was, we never talk about it, but I think everybody in the program, the facilitators, they have the same experience quietly. And at the end, I think when they get together, we get a letter from them. And one of the things that spoke the most to me from this letter is they feel like they belong and they have a family. And this really substantial for resilience, true resilience, that you belong here. You don't have the paperwork. You don't have a home yet, but you belong here because I'm like you, you are like me, on this energetic and emotional connection. I think if I hadn't worked with this group of people, I wouldn't experience that depth of connection.
Yeah, that's beautiful. that gift that you give to each other, right?
Yes.
Probably that sense of belonging is probably something they haven't. I mean, you said they've left their countries, as when they were
very young.
So that's probably something they haven't felt for years, right? If ever. So to be able to give that to them and share it and have that also return, for you from them is wonderful.
Yes, it's I didn't expect the depth that it went. I expect something magical was going to happen, because this is for all of us, the organizer. We were just thinking, wow, this is probably the most important project we've done. And everybody was kind of nervously anticipating what will come out from it. And it took that long to get ready, 18 months. Of course, everybody's doing it pro bono because everybody has their own work to do on the side, but it's really touching you to the core.
Yeah. Now, I want to just come back to something you said before, where you said, the healing needing to be done sort of in relationship or in connection with others. And I can see how that would make that, would make healing so much more effective, right? I guess my question is more around, obviously there are things sometimes that we can do by ourselves. Maybe we're not necessarily in connection with other people. If we don't have necessarily that connection, or, is being able to do the tools or use some of these techniques at home, how effective are they without that connection?
Yes, it is still very, very, very good to do, because in this program, we designed it that there's a number of things that we're considering. One is reconnection to their true self, you know, because the label refugees is burdening for them. And they're straight up saying like, this is something we don't, to say politely, feel comfortable in. It's really a label that is debilitating. And they also regularly still deal with if something triggers, then they experience something. When they think about their family, which they do all the time, their body gets super tense and super stressed. And I understand this. And they also spend most of their time with other refugees. So it's a conversation that is heartfelt, but they were saying, but sometimes we cannot get out from this low vibrating tone, emotions as a tone of our conversation, because we're not able to always see, you know, what can be done, where can we go. Consciously, I can tell you what I'd like to be able to do, but I cannot hold this for a long time. And so when they say to us, we would like, it is a successful program for me if I can hold this hope and to take actions towards the hope, knowing that we don't know anything about our future. We don't know where we're going to end up. We don't know where we're going to leave towards the country or to see our family again. So just the ability to hold this fire to keep us going. This is what we want. And of course, none of these people that were, well, a couple of these mentors were located close to each other, but everybody was scattered in different parts of Indonesia. So nobody is really, you know, sitting next to each other. And they also don't have, because they were so young when they came, they left their countries, they also didn't have this natural ability to feel, to open up easily, because life also has been giving them a message that people shouldn't be all trusted, basically, right? So we have to, throughout the 14 weeks, we're trying to set up the way we deliver some of the sessions in a way that they will open up in front of the group. And so they can follow it up. They have a mentor that meets them every week. We are the facilitators giving the contents and supporting the mentors who are dealing with them every week. But at the same time, also, they are triggered by their emotions. So we gave them a training on how to deal with that consciously and energetically. So breathing exercises. I trained them on how to tap themselves, so using emotional freedom technique, and they have given me the feedback. It's been very helpful. And throughout the program, of course, I do healing sessions for them one-to-one. And then I did the reprogramming meditative recording, because this is also to reprogram the subconscious mind and to create new neural pathways and everything. So it's all very comprehensive, and all are useful, even when they didn't immediately connect with other people in the beginning. Now, yes. I mean, they even would write me something very easily. In the beginning, it was really difficult. I said, you know, you can always contact me, and it doesn't think, it's not natural for them to actually connect and ask questions. And I feel this,
they have to build that level of trust, right?
Right. So then, but with all these tools, even just coloring, you know, I took art class. So my art teacher was making a design, and I have offered this to them. Look, if you have a lot going on, why don't you color? Just color this paper. You can print it out and get, you know, a markers or whatever you have, and just sit quietly with music and just color. It's because this is about moving the emotions out without talking so much, without having to relive the trauma and everything. And with the emotional freedom technique, the tapping, it's also very helpful. So I also explained to them, you know, what I'm doing with you in the healing sessions is to clear the things that came from the past. But what is showing up in your life today, that's on you. You know, you have to process this yourself. And I'm giving you a couple of tools on how to do this very easily anywhere you are without any additional tools, because all you need is your finger, breathing, and time. So, and this has been very, very useful. And there was a request actually to consider doing this on a wider population within the refugee community as a masterclass, where people could just come in and learn it, and then do it. So it is still very useful, Julie, even when there was no connection, because connection takes time, and you need to feel comfortable to trust. So,
and I suppose that connection is really where where you share some of that, really difficult stuff, right? And then you go, and then you learn how to sort of deal with that with the tools that you can then use later.
Yes.
So what else did you? So you mentioned a couple of things already. What else did you learn, through this experience?
I will share this because it's very emotional for me. I think the last day of our workshop, of our program, the resilience part, they were really reflecting on how it's been for them before they move into the formal evaluation process, because there's a quite comprehensive evaluation process. And of course, I did the same. I did the same. We give, about 20 minutes. Of course, I started this reflection way before, because every interaction I had with them was always touching my soul. And then I realized two main things for myself. And this is impacts everything that I am doing after that. One is, I would like to do this more. In this past 14 weeks, I think in average, I give 1 to 1.5 a day per week for this. I did it with pleasure. It was so amazing. But my soul says it's time to find a way so you can do it more. And we are talking about young people. And there's something about, I was scared in the beginning, because I never worked with this young group, young adult before. And I have no real connection to this group, really, from my personal life. I'm connected to the younger kids, but not this age. So it was a bit interesting. But I also understand the importance of providing support for this population, because they are not teenager anymore, but they're not adults, somewhere in between. And apparently, from what I know from my sister-in-law, such support for this group of people is not as many and as established as other support for, say, children or women or such. So it's a huge opportunity for us to attend to this, because it's in the formative years. Their brain is developing still. So the opportunity to impact them and to help them to become healthier within themselves as they move towards adulthood is really high. And so I didn't realize this, that actually is a very attractive population for me. Thinking from my personal perspective as an elder, like both my parents have passed away, and a lot of my uncles and aunties have passed away. So my generation became, slowly becoming the older generations in my family. And I can't help myself from thinking, what does that mean though? What does that mean for the next generations, right? And so I connect this all together, and I'm like, okay, so I would love to work with these populations. This is one. The second thing also, which impacts, so basically the question for me personally is, how do I do this? If I want to spend, say, 2.5 days in a week to do such work, which I would do with pleasure, what does that mean in terms of my business, right? And I'm a self-employed, so I really have to think about that, because I would like to still be able to take care of myself well, and also to continue to learn new skills and techniques, etc. So that's one thing. But the other aspect to it also is, there was some kind of anger within me, because I don't believe such work should only be done on pro bono. Because this is really seriously, this is the population that needs a lot of professional help. And I would like to be able to have more people like myself professionally to come into this, but I do also understand that it's not pro bono is not the way to do it. There has to be another way to do it, because everybody needs to be well taken care of in the process. It's a very intense process. And maybe there are reasons why, you know, agencies or development agencies have not addressed the mental health and the trauma, because it's a lot. And it requires experts. It requires people with expertise, right? And
it requires, I mean, it requires also you as a therapist or a facilitator to have done your own work, right?
Yes,
because,
correct.
as you said, you can and you will get triggered by what they're bringing to the table, or you know, to the conversation. So
absolutely. And this was something that happened in this program, is that because I knew the process, I set up a lot of support behind me that helped me throughout this 14 weeks to process this, including friends like yourself to talk about these things. That's also a support system. But I also have healers behind me and experts in the topic to have discussions with, right? And I was offering the same to the people in the program. And yes, they're coming forward now, some of the people in the program, because they feel like, you're absolutely right, I would like to work on myself now. Great. So then this is also what I'm giving, right? Not just the mentees, but also the people in the program. And I do it with pleasure, and I do it because it's important. If we want to do a good job, and 14 weeks is not that long. It is long, but it's not that long. But if you do it right, this sets up really nice foundation for them to feel much more safe exploring their lives, and to be much more on their power of self, right? To express themselves, because that's one. The other thing is about what, because of the trauma, they just felt like nobody's listening. And you know, one of the people in the group came from a minority tribe in Afghanistan, and for generations they've been hunted down by their own Afghan people. So this is also another level of that, right? Like, why can't we just exist? And this is, you know, what did we do wrong that you wanted to kill us? You know, and this is it's an intense existential questions, right? And we were doing our best to give that question to be explored. There was no conclusion, because it takes years to understand this question, but to give a framework or a place, a safe space to start exploring and touching these questions that my father used to give me as I was growing up was so important. And this is also something that it needs to be facilitated, because it's huge.
And what would you say their prospects were before going through this mentoring program, and what is it now? You know, for those that have been through it, you know, what has changed? What are their prospects now? What has changed?
For a number of them, they reacted to the trauma in a very different way. So some became very busy in achieving and working, because then they didn't have much time to think about the pain. Okay. Some became passive aggressive because didn't really know how to deal with this and feel restrained, but then there's a lot of anger, and so the explosion. And some other ones were not wanting to take a risk to be seen, because I feel like I have to protect myself. So they all have interests, they all have their dreams, but they wouldn't like to share it with the world. So it's like, I'm not ready to. So one of them wanted to be a photographer, and he's very dedicated to learn, and he was in touch with some people in his community that is very good with this, but he immediately said, I will not show you my photos. Okay. Why not? And it's like, because I'm not ready to deal with comments from people, because the heart is very sore from other things, not from photographer. photography. So I would say that it's very difficult for them to be in their body. Let's just say that, and to be in their lives. And there's always this some of them, there's self-sabotaging situation, or when they learn something, their mind doesn't allow them to learn any quickly. The mind confuses them also, because if you learn it, then you want to do something about it, but it's not safe. So let's not learn this quickly. So after the 14 weeks, it's so interesting how they're very vibrant. You can see that they change, like a different person. The one that was really quiet in the beginning, at the end of the program, was saying, actually, what I love about this program is the ability for me to speak and share my achievements throughout the program. And we were like, you know, and now when it's almost like second nature to share his photos. He didn't even blink twice. Like, I took a photo of the sunrise the other day, and then just wait, let me send it to you. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, let me not remind you that you didn't even want to do this. So they become more of themselves. They become more of who they are. They become much more comfortable being them. And also the other thing that is interesting, when they become more of themselves, they also quietly were saying, like, some of them, I felt like I'm not connecting anymore with most of the people around me, because they are now can lift themselves up a bit from that fog. And it makes them a bit nervous, because this was the family they knew, is this the other refugee communities. But then as they were growing, they were like in between something. So they were like, oh, what if I'm not connected to them? And so we actually helped them to process that, because you can still be connected to your old friends, even when they have different mindset, because they offer something else. They connected to your culture and everything. But at the same time, you also make new friends who are much more connected in the way you think. So this is also tells us that there's growth, because they start saying these things like, yeah, I was not as comfortable than I was before with the group. It feels like there's more and more gap between us. That is a good sign of growth. But at the same time, also the organizer has received requests from their community to be considered for the next batch. So which tells us that they have been sharing who they are with their populations, and the population around them think, I also want the same.
So their peers are noticing the difference that it's making for them, and wanting similar.
Similar, yes.
That's wonderful.
It's human is generous. What can I say? They just say, oh, this is what I learned. You can also learn it. And it was saying to us, can we share the tools we learned from you? Of course you can. Of course you can.
But it sounds like, they went from, being sort of quite, perhaps hopeless, self-sabotaging, keeping themselves very small, and maybe not seeing the path to a much more vibrant.
And not only that, physiologically also they have issues. A lot of them have sleeping problems.
Right.
And as we went through the healing, they slept better. They're much vibrant. They can change their habit. For example, certainly one of them was saying there's this darkness, or fog of darkness coming, especially when I'm at home and not working. And then when after a couple of healing sessions, said, no, it's not there anymore. Great. And one of the mentees was, I sleep well. And the couple of these people, because one of them, they had also trauma before they came here. They came from Afghanistan. So there was something about the Taliban, that one of them was feeling very unsafe when they are either sleeping or praying. When they hear noises, the body gets stressed. So it's very difficult to get quality of sleep. And as we work with the subconscious mind healing, they were able to sleep well. So there are different parameters for physiologically. There is some improvement. And one of the mentees was saying that because they also kept their struggle to themselves and not to overburden their family. So they didn't say in a much more detailed way to their family in their homeland the struggle they have, because they feel like they shouldn't bother their family because there's not much anyone can do. So they hold a lot of this thing on their young shoulders and bodies, which impact their bodies. So so there's a number of improvement from the physical, emotional, and also spiritual, even spiritual level. From I'm upset with God because all of them believe in God too, and why is it happening to me? My life is a tragedy. And then at the end, they could say very clearly, I can see that my life is not a tragedy. There are some tragic experiences in there, but there's also good stuff in there. And for me, this is huge. Just to for them to be able to see, I am not my experience, and they're very young, and it is. I cried when I heard that.
So moving from this victim mindset to really feeling empowered and like they are in charge of their lives.
My soul is bigger than my experience. This was like, oh my God. I, as a facilitator, and my partner would say the same. We were like, okay, I think it's been a good 14 weeks.
Absolutely, to be able to affect that kind of change for, particularly for young people, right?
Young people,
who can then go out and spread that wider.
I think the thing that the organizer is thinking now is how to continue the connections after the program in a way that is uplifting also for them and also for other people. So they in Indonesia, they're preparing now for an art exhibition by refugees. And this is to create awareness about refugee and their lives, and also to bring the beauty, the creative expression of the people. And we involve everyone in the program into this, and very likely they will have a role in the next batch because they wish to, and they're very excited. Okay, what do we need to be trained in? And so
fantastic.
Yes, and I think we don't have to wait, to get help from, I don't know, the government, whatever. It's just like, I don't know, it will never ever come. Grassroots movement, when it's done correctly with ethics, and everybody who is in this program, they're very established in their area of expertise, and we keep each other accountable in this, right? And I think there's a lot more of us who can do this. I'm just feeling that pro bono work is not the most sustainable way to change the situation, or impact the situation.
So what would you like ideally to happen, or how,
Julie, the idea for me is the ideal situation, but this is certainly long term, is that we have an online space where people, when they're refugee, can do self-healing. Okay. And then a group of people that comes only when there is a need to have a facilitated process, just like us, like the idea, but it's because of the nature of the trauma. I think there's a couple of other things that needs to be put in place, but there are refugees everywhere. And how we did it in this program tells us that you don't need to be in the same place to experience this program. I was running the whole thing from Switzerland. My colleagues, all of them are in Indonesia. The refugees are in different locations in Indonesia. None of us was really sitting with each other. And my sister-in-law is from Australia. She ran everything from Brisbane. So And this tells me that if we could have a community where we can share or guide or provide facilitation, provide tools and knowledge on how you can self-heal, this is already going to be huge. And then there's another group of people like myself, for example, to do one-to-one, because we realize that we do need the one-to-one. There's no trauma is exactly the same, but there's a lot of homework that can be done by the participants themselves. So it's a hybrid model in a way. And of course, culture somewhat play a role in here. So for example, I don't know a lot about Somalia or Afghanistan, but I understand the culture, a family culture, and also religion, because I grew up in an Islamic religion, and we don't exactly have the same Islam because they're different stream of Islam in these different countries, but we understand the lingo and all this. So then it makes it relatable when you have this. So to have a facilitators from many different parts of the world is also important. And this Afghan, young Afghan population, they could be anywhere in the world. So it's that kind of mindset is how can you, I'm thinking, we can certainly develop something like this. It's a huge project. I'm taking one step at a time in the way that I can.
And what kind of support would you like or would you need? Because you talked about not doing this all pro bono, and absolutely right. It should be a sort of win for everyone. So
this is what I learned from this program. These young people have worked with psychologists, and they've been helpful. What I'm bringing, and people like me who does the subconscious mind healing, is we are in conjunction with what they have learned from the work with the psychologists, or some of them, not all of them, is to go deeper and to do something complementing to what the psychologists have managed to do this and to help them with. So it's very important for subconscious mind healing to be integrated. This is all what I'm going to say. This is I think this is what makes the program very different. And the feedback from the participant was, whatever it is that you're doing, please teach people about subconscious mind healing. This is their feedback, because they've worked with different helps, and this is the parts that like, oh my God, I can empower myself. Oh my God, I can change things relatively quickly. And so people like me with this profession, most of us are still claiming our space in the transformational program, right?
What do you mean by cleaning your
claiming?
Sorry.
Yes, claiming our space in this transformational program. It's the word healing for people is like, what is that? It's a woo-woo. Well, if we are given the chance to explain to you what it means literally, physiologically and biologically, it's not woo-woo at all. And ask the people who's receiving these things. So people like myself, we are working day in, day out in our profession, and to be able to be a good healer, there's a lot of investment one makes in oneself to be able to do this. So if you want to really get good people, it cannot be on pro bono, because we still need to take care of ourselves. And in the process of taking care of other people, we will also taking care of ourselves. We will engage help behind us. So I think we should just get the support as if we are helping another client instead of doing this unpaid. We can do this to a certain amount, but there's so many more people who would get benefits of this.
Right. So this is not, there's no, as you said, there's no funding from the government. There's no funding from anyone. Correct. You guys have set this up at a really grassroots level.
Extremely grassroots.
Brought in people that to who are doing it, voluntarily.
Right. We were fundraising this, but all the funding goes to the mentees because they need computer or phone. They need to pay for the internet because we need them to, because, and at the time when they're doing this mentoring program, that means they cannot work. Right. So we have given them a stipend. It's not a huge amount, but it helps. So all the expertise of the people being in this program, facilitating for them, nothing. And this is why people feel so torn, because they would like to give more, but they can't leave their livelihood or cut, work 60%, 80% instead of 100%, for example, so that they can give 20% more for this initiative, basically. So there's a lot to think about for us. And there's many different avenues that I guess the program organizer need to think about. But I personally believe the issue is not that there's no money. I think there's a lot of money. It's just having it going to the right pockets to move this kind of initiative forward.
Yeah. And if you think of, I guess most programs that deal with, refugees, deal a lot with, the logistics and making sure that there's food and they have, perhaps a place to stay. But I don't know, I haven't heard of any that really deal with the mental health and processing of trauma and, how to deal with what has happened, right? In these situations. So
absolutely. I think this was also what they discovered when they did the design of this program. It took them a while to do this. They did a lot of research going around the world looking for different types of mentoring. They call it mentoring because that's what it was. But it was more than mentoring because there was a lot of healing in there. And I think they said, look, we can't apply exactly what already exists out there into this program. And I do understand this, particularly when I came in very, very strongly and I said, we have to deal with the elephant in the room. If you want true resilience, we have to do this. There's no way around it. And I don't believe I would get in if they had said, we won't touch the subconscious mind. I probably wouldn't come in because it's not a lasting, and it would take a longer time to be able to to create such a profound shift.
So Astuti, why is it important for you to sort of talk about this at this point?
I know you're going to ask that. And I don't know if I have one answer, to be honest. I think I personally need to sit with somebody and talk about this through questions because there's so much in me. But why is it important to share? Because I want ideas from people. Julie, how can we do this? Because every time I brought up this topic to people, and I think I'm not the only one who get this reaction. I spoke to my sister-in-law about it and she thought, yeah, I get the same thing. So when we shared with people what we're doing, they will look at you like, oh my God, you're touching something so scary. Okay. And then the second statement, but there's too many of them. But that's precisely my point. There's too many. But that's when we have to do something.
You need to start somewhere.
Right. Right. And this was really interesting. It felt overwhelming. Yes, because everybody knew the kind of trauma. They kind of know. They don't know because they don't experience it. Like I kind of know, but I didn't know really because I didn't experience it. And it was a lot. It was intense. Yet with a proper support processes, the right people, the right approach, the right mindset, the right energy, this could shift. And there's a lot of people like me in the world. But again, we also have other needs. And we couldn't do this only with pro bono. It's not fast enough. It's not big enough,
Yeah, you need to be able to scale this to,
yes,
because there's, as you say, millions of refugees out there who haven't had the support that they need.
And there are different types of population within this big population, and we are targeting a specific ones, which is the 18 to 24, 23, this group, young adult, for good reason. But maybe other group can focus on different populations, like, the children, but on the healing of the trauma. Because this doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. What I learned from this, I have so much respect for the people who came into the mentoring program, because it showed to me how strong human soul is. And there's hope when we can actually help them to unburden themselves from the impact of the trauma, basically. So I want ideas. I don't know how to solve the situation, but we do need, I want ideas. How can we get more people like me, and also the kind of professionals that were in the program to be able to work with more people in each of the batch that we are going to do, and multiply it elsewhere. Potentially. Maybe that's not necessarily not our team's agenda at this point. But I mean, looking at how the process has been, this could easily be done in other places, basically.
Okay, so it is something you can scale.
I believe so, with proper planning. Yes, and people to do this with. Yes, I think so.
I really want to just acknowledge you for, and your co-facilitators and all, the people that are involved in this, just for your generosity and the passion and the sort of, dedication that you show, and that you give to these young people. You're really making an impact and changing people's lives.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. I'll certainly pass it on to the team. They all deserve it. I mean, it's been an intense ride for everyone. I also would like to say something very touching, because I think if you have been on the receiving end of this message, everything becomes quite personal. So one of the mentees had written me a message at the end of the program, and he was saying like that his mother has been asking him how he has been. And he said, I told my mother that in the beginning of this year, I don't feel well at all about my life. But now I feel like this is going to be a great year, and I feel very good about myself. And thanks to this program, and thanks to you, because he was addressing it to me, thanks to you, this could happen. And my mother said to tell you, this is what he said, that she is very thankful for you, and also she's praying from her deepest part of her heart for your well-being, for you being healthy. And when he said that to me, I'm not a mother, but I have a nephew. So if my nephew had been taken away from me, and I don't know when I'm going to see him again, and somebody help my son, I can breathe better. And when he said this to me, I just thought, I'm connected to his mother. That is just that he is a son of everybody. That was the thing that I was feeling like, oh my God, there's a woman out there that I didn't really connect with until he said it to me. Because of course, his mother is very, very worried about him. And And I said to him that, can you please tell your mother that, see, you are a reflection of who she is, and she has raised a wonderful son, because now I get to see him, meet him, and get to know him, and tell her that her son has a second family, and that we are going to work together to support each other, and tell her so that she can be less worried. I mean, I cannot tell. I mean, she will not stop worrying for sure, but she can be less worried. Yeah. And this has become personal, Julie. It's like somebody in Afghanistan is also my family.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. So that intense connection came out from this kind of things.
Yeah.
And you cannot undo it. You cannot undo it.
Yeah.
You know,
and you just say, nor do you want to.
No, nor do I want to. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so it is intense for the facilitators also, but it's much needed. I think this is what the world really needs, this kind of open-hearted connections. Then a lot more people heal faster, basically. Yeah. So I suddenly pass on this message to everyone in the team, in the committee. I said, this was addressed to me, but this isn't just about me. No. And I think everybody was very touched by that.
Yeah, beautiful. Amazing work. Yeah.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, I have to tell my sister. Thank you. I need to tell my sister-in-law about it. It means her friend Iche and her and the two mentors, the initial mentors, which is Febri and Ali. You know, they're the people who is behind it for 18 months before we took this off the ground. Wow. So I'll certainly pass on this recognition to them and everybody else in the program, and also the mentees, obviously.
Yeah. And obviously, if we have any ideas or people have ideas, then
please share to Julie.
Want to support you, definitely to get in touch.
Yes, certainly. Let's work together somehow. Can we just put our heads together and make this happen? Yeah. This is basically why it's important to share now.
Absolutely.
We are thinking on how to do a number of master classes that touch many more people, without offering the one-to-one. So the idea of this self-healing concept may come already. So sometime this year, that's the idea that we're going to play around with. But I'm excited, and I'm grateful that the listeners are taking the time to listen to this. Thank you so much. Thanks, Julie.